Good afternoon and welcome to the marketplace. Coming up in this bulletin, strong dollar demand from banks put fresh pressure on Cedi as market support from Bank of Ghana through its auction dwindles. Also, new concerns of cocoa smuggling heightens as price differential between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire is almost 700 Ghana cedis. We have these and more coming up in this bulletin. Now let's bring you an update on how the Ghana cedi is performing against major global currencies. My name is Winston Taki, and this is the marketplace. Now to our first business story. There are new concerns that cocoa farmers could be encouraged to smuggle their commodity across the country's borders for higher prices. This was after farmers expressed disappointment in the recent adjustment of cocoa prices. There is more in this report.
Government on August 4 announced a fixed farm gate price of 51,660 cedis per ton for the 2025-2026 season, or 3,228 cedis per 64 kg bag, indicating just 4% increase from the previous season. Already, a coalition of cocoa farmers has threatened to bar officers of Cocoa Board from their farms in protest of the newly announced producer price for the upcoming season. Reuters reports that more than 300,000 farmers have expressed anger over what they consider inadequate rise in the price of cocoa for the new season. Some cocoa farmers have revealed a price differential of around 700 cedis between the Ghana price and the price quoted by Cote d'Ivoire for the same kilogram of cocoa. There are fears this could be an incentive to encourage smuggling. Ghana lost approximately 160,000 tons of cocoa to illegal cross-border trade in the 2023-2024 season.
Now let's get on to Zoom and speak to a former General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union, Edward Carraway, to give us more insight on this development. Welcome to the marketplace, sir. Now, do these farmers have a case? Because apart from the price, are there other incentives? Mr. Carraway, kindly unmute, please.
Yeah. I think, are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Well, I didn't get your question very well.
So I'm asking whether these farmers, do they have a case concerning why they decide to smuggle? And also, are there other incentives that is currently encouraging them to smuggle their produce instead of selling it to the Central Cocoa Board?
Well, let me say good afternoon to you, and then good afternoon to the farmers who are listening and to all Ghanaians. I think the desire is to have the farmers at heart, their interest and so on. And to support farmers, it is not only about price, it is other things that need to be added. And if you look at the way Cocoa Board and the farmers have been operating for years, it's not only about price, but it's also about supporting the farmers to produce. We've seen that the price difference between the Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire is quite significant. And that should not be the reason why smuggling must go on. However, if you also look at the production structure and distribution structure of Cote d'Ivoire and that of Ghana, there's also a marked difference. Whereas in Ghana, the cocoa farmers are supported, particularly for this season, with this new government, that they are going to support them with free fertilizer, inputs, and so on. If you put all that as a cost to the farmer, you can see that they could have put that money on the price of the produce. But you see, because Ghana has seen the cocoa as a strategic crop, it has to support the farmers to produce, and that's why you could see that there's a price differential. The question about smuggling, that we all know is an illegality, and it cannot be the case that we should condone smuggling whenever there are problems. When there are problems within the system, we need to fix it rather than threatening to say that we'll smuggle. I would encourage my fellow farmers not to venture into that, because we don't encourage them to go into illegal acts. Smuggling is an illegality. It is frowned upon by our laws, and therefore they should not be dreaming of that. But they can continue to engage in a dialogue with the Cocoa Board, who determine those prices under a committee. Great. And so on.
Mr. Kariwe, do you think
we can have an amicable solution?
Great. Do you think the government could have done better than what was offered the farmers quite recently? All right, we'll try to reconnect with Mr. Kariwe to understand some of the farmers' sentiment that has to do to why the motivation is there for them to decide to smuggle some of their beans to other neighboring countries. For now, Cote d'Ivoire has issue with meeting global demands, and also Ghana, as of now, has reviewed its prices upward to ensure the farmers are encouraged to. Certainly. Now we have Kariwe back on. Mr. Kariwe, can you hear me, please?
I can hear you, Claire. It's Great. Just sometimes it's a network.
Great. You were speaking about negotiation with government, and I'm asking that could government have done better, especially with what was offered the farmers?
Well, you can say that government could have done better, but what it also means is that other sectors will suffer. We should know that it is a value chain, and the world market price cannot be directly given to farmers alone, because there are other costs along the value chain. The cocoa that we produce from the farm gate also need to be cleaned up, processed before it can be exported. There are other costs and so on. So the question is whether government could have done better. There's always an opportunity for us to do better. And that is what I think that we should all be striving at. But you see, what the smuggling as an option is not a solution to getting things better. Because if at the end of the day, you smuggle out the cocoa and then government incurs costs by giving you fertilizers and other inputs, and then you smuggle it out, what will happen is that a time will come where there will not be production of cocoa, the farmers will lose, and everybody will lose. So we should not tread on that trajectory. That's why I'm calling for more negotiations with Cocoa Board, and then see what could be done to better improve the farmers' lot.
Great.
It must not necessarily be only money. It shouldn't necessarily be only money, but other things which I believe government has already done could be a good thing for the farmers. But when we are only monetizing everything and leaving the other things that our farmers in Ghana are having and those in Cote d'Ivoire are not having, I don't think we'll be doing justice to the comparison.
Great.
So I will encourage the farmers to tone down and then also try to seek some consultations with Cocoa Board, and I believe that at the close of the day there will be a resolution to their concerns.
All right. Now, away from this topic, what is the state of our food security now and even going forward?
Well, I am on the field now, and I'll tell you that what I've seen and what is on the ground, if things go this way, we are likely to have good harvest, particularly in the northern part of the country. But having said that, our food situation is not yet over, because we still import a lot of food to supplement domestic production. So we are not yet out of the woods. Even it will take us a number of years with dedicated policy implementation and ensuring that all inputs and investments we make get to the farmer, and then it is used for production. The issue about smuggling of agricultural inputs has been with us for a long time. And I think that this time around, we should be able to reduce it to the minimum, if not eliminate it at all. And that would indeed help in food production. But as the situation stands now, I can foresee the crops are doing well. Most of the crops, particularly the northern part of the country, which is the greatest basket of the country, they are doing well, and they are about tasseling, and that is flowering in ordinary language. And then it will not be long, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you will see a lot of maize coming on. But the problem has to do with rice. Apart from rice being produced at the irrigation areas, there's no enough water. The rains have not come so much. So the health situation of rice, which is not cultivated in the irrigation areas, is not so good. Apart from that, the food situation would be a good one should things continue the way they are now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Karawan, former General Secretary for the General Agricultural Workers Union, giving us insights on the outlook for the nation, especially when it comes to food. Now, moving away from that, demand for dollars from commercial banks have picked up strongly. The development has put some fresh pressure on the Ghana cedi, resulting in some serious depreciation against the dollar over the past week. My colleague George Wiafe joins me in studio for more details in this development. George, you have engaged with some of the banks, and tell us, what have they been saying?
But Winston, before I even give you more details about what those commercial banks have been saying, let's give our viewers some background of where we were and where are we right now. This graph will give us some better understanding. Now, January this year, we're looking at somewhere around $14.85. That is, you need about 14.85 Ghana cedis to get $1. So let's fast forward. In February, you needed about 15.5 to get it. This is the interbank rate. So these are the rates that the commercial banks were likely to give to you if you should walk into any of the commercial bank. Now let's fast forward where we've seen some sustained stability against the dollar. In June, when the 10 ranged 10.3, 10.4. Now in August, you're seeing somewhere around 10.65. If you engage some of the other commercial banks, as at yesterday, they were quoting 10.80. And so we've seen that slight uptick if you should look at the graph in terms of the quotes that the commercial banks have been giving to us when it comes to for purposes of transaction. Now, you ask for the reasons in terms of what they've actually been telling us. Yes. And if you engage some of them, the reasons are very, very interesting. Some of them are arguing that most businesses actually, they want to import for the Christmas festivities. So if you realize that the thing that you see on the market, the rackets, those balloons and all the rest, this is the time most of the businesses are imported. So they cite the reason as being, one, people are demanding the dollars actually to finance import for the Christmas festivities. So there's been a certain spike in demand for dollars to finance these imports. Also, there are some who are worried that, okay, I've heard news about dollar shortage. I'll be traveling in maybe November, or you'll be traveling maybe in December. So should I rush right now and go and demand dollars and then hoard it? That is piling up the demand as well. Now, another interesting thing, when you engage the banks, even though the commercial bank or the Bank of Ghana is denying it, yes, the argument is that there has been some limited supply of dollars on the market. Could it be that if you still hold the Bank of Ghana supply constant, but rather on the demand side, there's been a sudden spike, and the banks think that they are not getting their requests through the various auction tools that the Bank of Ghana deploys for them to get their dollars? Now, let me give you one typical example. For instance, last week, yes, the commercial banks, when you put their spot auction avenue that they use to get dollars from the Bank of Ghana, they put in a request about $348 million. That was last week. Bank of Ghana supplied them $100 million. You've seen that gap over there. Yeah. So you've seen what is happening with respect to put in some pressure when you even do the basic economics about demand and supply and what is happening to the Ghana cedi. The Bank of Ghana dilemma might be playing a very critical role here. And how do I play it here or explain it here? Not the dilemma ghost. But for instance, you realize there will be a lot of debt settlement going into next year. So you also want to be very careful how you go with the dollar supply. Also, don't forget that there is a political twist to it as well. When these things start coming up, those who are managing the political space are not excited. So they'll be putting some pressure on the Bank of Ghana, putting more dollars as well to support this thing. Also, don't forget that the World Bank, we are under an IMF program, they've raised issues about dollar support on the market and what it means for your reserves as well. So how does the Bank of Ghana deal with all these challenges in trying to be careful about how they go about with any market intervention?
What is the central bank currently doing now, or possibly saying?
Well, when you engage the bank, they are telling us that they have adequate dollars in terms of reserves. So the argument that we don't have dollars should be disputed. Also, they say that there is no need for us to panic, but they are also being strategic in how they manage the reserves prudently so that come next year, when there are a lot of payments we made, they can make it. So these are some of the things that we are picking up from the Bank of Ghana in terms of they having adequate dollars to meet the market demand. As to whether they are bringing it on the market to meet the demands, another thing altogether,
I'm sure this settles someone's optimism to assess whether the speculative cases will well be sorted with this analysis. Thank you very much, George, for bringing out this insight. Now, let's get on to Zoom and speak to economist Courage Buti. Now, Courage, welcome to the marketplace. What do you make of the current pressure on the cedi that is being experienced on the market?
Yeah, pressure is a strong word. I don't think what is happening is exactly pressure. It's to be expected, right? If you are coming down from 15.5 thereabout levels to 10.3, it's only expected that you see movements around a certain mean before stability. And I'm not sure in the mind of any analyst, the cedi came to 10.3 and will stay there. Of course, there was always going to be some movement here and there. And to the extent those movements are not alarming, we moved from 10.3 to 10.4, 10.5, 10.6, 10.8, back to 10.65, and now back to 10.8 on the interbank market. And the pulse, if you want to truly gauge the pulse, look at what is happening in the retail market. Yes, when banks go to auction, there are various reasons. Bank of Ghana could reject some bets or offer some. Bank of Ghana first would have to gauge what level of demand. Is it frivolous? Is it effective demand? And are they reasons enough to spend some reserve? And you want to also look at whether there are documentation issues built in. The reason, and people compare us to the South Africans, your Kenyas, and other places where you go and you can't easily trade FX. You have to show documentation or some form of valid document before you can transact. Those are the kind of things we are trying to implement. It will cause short-term movement, but ultimately there will be stability. And I'm not saying that to mean the cedi has become stable and will remain there, but I'm trying to say the current movements in the market are a reflection of a number of interventions coming from the central bank itself. And of course, the normal market dynamics that are happening as a result of the sharp correction we have seen start of the year. And all of those will happen for the cedi to ultimately find its true value. My forecast for end of year has been that we're looking at around 12 cedi 10 pesos per cedi dollar exchange rate. And that will still have been a reasonable end of year figure, given where we started from, really. So I don't think there is so much to panic about. I think it's a lot of normal market movement. And if you see the spreads, the margins at which they are moving up or down, they are in predictable ranges. And ultimately, I think things will level up along the year.
Great. So the Bank of Ghana intervening, what should be the likely response?
Well, I don't think they'll even panic about this or do any major response. They will keep at what they have been doing so far. Truth is there is reserve. And again, truth is that the macros are stable. They would have to do a bit more moral switching and institute the measures that kind of bring sanity into the market. The pricing regime of commercial banks and the players in the FX space are looked at carefully. Today, every bank is cautious because you don't want to be slapped with the kind of fines we saw last year, and they are quite heavy. So they would all have to be cautious and play along those lines. And so the market dynamics will align ultimately. And it's usual. If something hits you hard, you try to, if you like, retaliate, right? So if you are a speculator and you have to fall from 15.4 when you expected the worst to happen this year, and then you are coming down to 10, there will be a point they will test the waters, right? And so those normal movements will happen. But I think we have enough reserve to quell any pressure. I don't think Bank of Ghana would lose sleep over the current movements. They are quite predictable, and there is enough firepower to deal with them.
Okay. You mentioned alignment, and I'm asking this question because of the recent criticism from the IMF and the World Bank about the moderated intervention that should be coming from the Bank of Ghana into the FS market. What do you say to that?
Well, I mean, an IMF are within their right to advise or comment on these issues, and they are inside there, so they know some of the things even we, the analysts and market, do not exactly know. And it's well intended. We know that government has injected about 1.3 or so billion, almost 1.4 billion into the market over the first quarter. If you extrapolate it over half year and even up to now, we may be talking about over 2 billion and all that.
Great.
Ultimately, long-term liquidity intervention in those forms is not the way to go. It is to open the market, and you realize you're opening the bond market. The government is contemplating issuing a bond, coming back to the market. If they do so and it's open to offshore investors, and you begin to see flows come from there, if the growth policies that are being initiated gain traction and they yield the result they are intended to yield, you begin to see a lot more export revenue from the non-traditional sector.
Thank you very much, Khalid Bottis, Head of Research at the Ghana Commercial Bank. Now, moving on, the Crops Research Institute of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research has reiterated its readiness in supporting the government to enhance food security and agricultural productivity under its Feed Ghana program. Researchers at the institute have developed unique crop varieties and modern agricultural technologies to facilitate large crop production and also adapt to climate change. Emmanuel Bright Kweku was at the open day event of the institute and commissioning of a multicultural technology park and filed this report.
Agriculture remains the backbone of Ghana's economy, contributing at least 50% to the country's GDP. But it is fraught with numerous logistical mechanization challenges, hindering the nation from raking in more revenue from the sector and feed the citizenry. Successive governments have rolled out policies to enhance the sector, with the latest being the Feed Ghana initiative. At its recent open day event in Kumasi, the Crops Research Institute under the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research emphasized bold and strategic projects to complement the government's program for food security and productivity. Professor Maxwell Dakwasante is the director of the institute.
By the end of your 4 years, at least 30% of the vegetables grown in Ghana, we should be able to source the seed from within. We do a lot of capacity building, so we are able to support you that. And we are also in the process of establishing institutional farms to support the government initiative. We are also in a position to give technical backstopping to all the people that you are supporting to do institutional farming. The school farms, the prisons, everybody else we can support with backstopping to do the institutional farming.
The 2025 Open Day was on the theme Transforming Agriculture to Feed Ghana, Climate Smart Technologies and Agroecological Solutions. A multicultural technology under the Agroecology and Circular Economy for Economic System project was commissioned at the event, aimed at researching farming practices which contribute to greenhouse gas emissions. Dr. Kweku Anwana Hwesofo Asante is a principal investigator.
Through this consortium, with members in Benin, Nigeria, Tanzania, Ghana, we have decided and we sought support to establish this park so that it serves as a regional center for research and innovation around agriculture GHG emission reduction technologies, so that anybody within Africa wanting to demonstrate technologies around agriculture GHG emissions can come for validation here.
A technical advisor at the Agric Ministry, Akwesietu Bondi, is positive of the potential of the project in mitigating climate change and its impact on the farms.
We don't have any instrumentation measuring the amount of these pollutants we are putting into the atmosphere. So with this technology, we can measure whether what we are absorbing with our tree crops and other crops we are producing and the relative emission as a result of our agricultural activities, something like the methane gas and what they call black carbon by way of burning the residue, whether what we are introducing into the atmosphere is less or more than what we are capturing with our crops that we are growing, especially our tree crops.
Director General of the CSIR, Paul Bosu, urged public-private partnership while inviting stakeholders to visit the technology park for hands-on experience to improve agricultural production.
We are here to launch ourselves into another phase where our research is being transferred. We want farmers, we want businesses, we want communities to come and look and see so that they can adopt some of the technologies, if not all, the new varieties, the new technologies.
For Joy News, my name is Emmanuel Brantskweku.
That's all for today's edition of the Marketplace. But before we go, I want you to visit myjoyonline.com. And first story you see on our business page is cocoa farmers revolt over prices, threaten mass smuggling, including Cedi appreciate against dollar in retail markets, and this and more you'll be experiencing right here on myjoyonline.com. Thank you for watching today's edition. Have a good business day and stay safe. Bye-bye.